topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Are you ready for Insights to Incite? Ready or not, it's showtime. Now get ready to listen in and watch right here on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Join us, and together we will escape the mundane. Insights to Incite, here is your host, Brandon Lawson.
According to Joan Halifax, many of us thinks this drains us, when in reality, this is something that truly enlivens us. In fact, Joan feels so strongly that she even promises that this enlivens us. Today is Thursday, July 8th. We want to thank you for joining us on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. And if you want to, if you're watching us on Talk4 TV, feel free to chime in at any point with questions, comments, anything you want to share or add, and I'll be looking for those comments to get to you. Today's show is Lesson 14 in our series, Matters That Matter. So what is it that Joan firmly believes enlivens us? Well, as we've seen with that image that was put up, she's speaking of compassion. And I want to talk with you today about compassion and share a few things that I believe are critical or key to this subject or topic. And so I would ask, just why does compassion matter? Any thoughts? Well, as I think of why compassion matters, or anything else for that matter, as I think of that, one way I come to an answer is I ask, what does it do? What does compassion do? What is it compassion does? If I can answer that, often I will find that therein lies the answer as to why it matters. Or if it doesn't matter, it will show that self as well. And as I think of this, I'm reminded of a few truths regarding compassion. And as we think of this, word compassion, it generally is associated with a quiet gentleness. You don't see a loud, obnoxious person that would be considered compassionate. Generally it's very quiet by nature, has a gentle spirit about it. Yet, with that said, I want us to look at some truths that shows just how compassion shouts. Yes, it shouts, making it undeniably impactful and true in what it does and the weight it carries. In fact, John Connolly, he had written some message of quotes. In fact, Roxy, if you could put that quote up by John Connolly, the one there, put that in. There we have it. The nature of humanity, its essence, is to feel another's pain as one's own and to act to take that pain away. There is nobility in compassion, a beauty in empathy, a grace in forgiveness. So this idea of compassion, and there are 6 truths I want to hint at here, and what compassion does, and also what it provides. But first, we want to step away to a brief commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Wow, that was insightful. Stay tuned as we go on a quick break, and we'll be right back with more Insights to Incite right here on W4CY Radio and Talk 4 TV. Are you seeking a speaker or coach who speaks life into your people? If so, look no further. Brandon Lawson is one who will inspire and motivate his audience, as well as empathize and relate to all. Reach out to Brandon and let him be your speaker and life coach by sending an email to brandon@connectandimpact.net or calling him at 513-520-7597. Brandon looks forward to speaking with you, to you, and for you. Let's connect and impact today. Insights to Incite, a real show with real-life messages. This show, which can be found on radio, TV, and our podcast, gives us insight to incite us to action and to excellence. Watch and or listen to Insights to Incite live at noon Eastern Time every Thursday on W4CY Radio and Talk 4 TV. Check out our past episodes on iHeartRadio, YouTube, or anywhere you listen to your podcast. Join us each week, and together we will escape the mundane. We are back with more Insights to Incite, so get ready and tune in to listen and watch. Now, once again, let's join Brandon Lawson.
So, how is it that compassion shouts? Well, the first one is the first truth, and that is S. Compassion serves. Yes, by its very nature, compassion is about serving. When you are hurting, when someone is in a bad situation, especially where they can't help themselves, and compassion rises up from within you, it moves you outward to do something about their issues, to help make their situation better. So it is by default a servant, or at the very least a characteristic of a servant. Compassion serves us. It moves us outward. And in fact, the Apostle John wrote about this in his first letter to the church. And I'm going to turn there and read from 1 John. And you're welcome to follow me. It'll be in chapter 3. Get that right here. In 1 John chapter 3, beginning in verse 16. This is how we have come to know love. He laid down his life for us. We should also lay down our lives for our brothers. Then verse 17. If anyone has this world's goods and sees his brother in need, but closes his eyes to his need, how can God's love reside in him? Then verse 18, little children, we must not love with word or speech, but with truth and action. In that verse 17, some translations say, who can recognize or see his brother in need and shut up his bowels of compassion, or others say heart of compassion, or others say and not take pity on him. But that's what compassion does. It serves. As we see that, and it's serving, and as a result, the server, the one showing compassion, many times can feel a great sense of gratification. I mean, haven't you experienced that? You see someone who's in a bad situation and they can't resolve the matter on their own. They can't do anything to make it better, yet you can. And you step forth. And once you do, and you help rectify the matter or help them to get beyond where they're at or to experience better, doesn't that make you feel good within? I mean, as you think of that, that's at the heart of what it does for the server. And as we know, when you touch the heart of another, they will often feel gratitude to you, that you have a double portion. You have the gratitude and the satisfaction, knowing that that you were the instrument that he used to make that difference. You feel a gratefulness, a gratitude, but you're also satisfied. It gives you a feeling of satisfaction, a sense of fulfillment, if you will. So compassion serves, and in doing so, it provides us with gratification. Second truth is compassion humbles us. And while it's safe to say that there was an element of humility in you when you moved outward to help that person in need, because if you were so stuck on yourself, so arrogant, so proud, you could care less about that other person. So there was some humility there already. But as you move outward and you help that other person and you meet them at their level, you come down to them, that you develop even a greater humility. It has a way of softening your heart as you, because if you can see, when you extend that compassion, you extend your heart outward to those folks or that person. And as you do, as you extend your heart outward, that is a giving a part of yourself. And what comes from that is you tend to experience more of what they're going through. And that gives you, a greater humility. You sense of how, perhaps how good you have it, or you didn't realize how bad it was for them. But when your heart goes outward and you connect to them, that humbles you even more. You see, humility, it has its way of working within us to change us. And one of the things it provides is it makes us more teachable. And I spoke to that last week when the message I gave was on humility. But as a result of being more teachable, we're more moldable, more practical. We can be shaped in how we want to be. But that's what compassion does. It humbles us. And in turn, it provides us with a greater spirit of teachability. Next, compassion observes. Yes, compassion observes. I like to say that many times a compassionate heart is accompanied by observant eyes. Eyes that recognize, that pinpoint certain things that others don't even notice. Such as you see someone who they haven't really acted out their displeasure. They haven't done anything to reveal it so much to others. They haven't spoken of it. Yet you can sense from what you see, there looks like there's a spirit of discontent, or that perhaps they're distraught. A person with a compassionate heart has those eyes to see, to recognize that. So they're observant. And being observant, they recognize this, and that in turn allows them to act on it, to do something to help make it better. And sometimes that's as simple as asking them if everything's all right. Because people don't want to just, choose someone randomly to dump on them. They feel like that's not appropriate, and they'd be right. It's not. So as a result, they keep it in. But when you actually notice, then cared enough to inquire, to gently inquire from them, that touches them more and more. That, in fact, will speak to their heart. And often they'll open up a little more, maybe a little at first, and then more as they see they can trust you with their hurts and pains. And we look over here in Matthew chapter 9, we can see a picture of this in action, where the observant eyes accompanied a compassionate heart. And here we have it in Matthew chapter 9. If you want to follow along, I'll be reading starting in verse 32. Actually, we're going to start in verse 35, it looks like. Then Jesus went to all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and every sickness. When he saw the crowds, he felt compassion for them because they were weary and worn out. They were like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is abundant, but the workers are few. Therefore, pray to the Lord of the harvest to send out workers into his harvest." Jesus recognized they were scattered about. They had no leader, no shepherd that truly cared for them. And he was moved by that to beseech his disciples to pray to the Father to send out workers into his harvest to meet the needs of those folks. But an observant heart, or a heart of compassion, has observant eyes. That's the third truth. And those observant eyes, what that does is it provides us a greater awareness of what's going on, what's happening. We're more outward focused. We're not so caught up and consumed with self. And as a result, we see those people. We see who's hurting. And when your heart is compassionate, you're moved to do something. Then, if we look at the fourth one, compassion unites us. Yes. When you have compassion on another, well, in effect, the very essence of compassion, or what it is a union of two or more souls coming together. You think about it. When you have compassion on another, when you recognize their need, their heart is hurting, they're in a bad situation, and you reach out to make ends meet, to help them to come up out of that state. Can't you see how the two of you, your hearts are connected? I mean, think of yourself when you've been on the receiving end, where you've been in a situation that wasn't favorable, and somebody stepped forth. Perhaps it was a financial matter. Other times it might just have been a matter of loneliness, but someone steps forth to fulfill that need, to help fill the void, the emptiness. Automatically, by default, your heart goes out to that heart. They come together, they're connected. Your souls are united. So, as we consider that and how compassion unites us, we can see within there that there's connection. That's what it provides. If you want to connect with others, find a means to be able to show compassion to them. Many times, a heart that shut itself out to you, when they see you're being compassionate toward them, will in turn decide to open to you, to allow you in. A heart that's shutting others out is a heart that's hurting. They've closed that heart. That way nobody else comes into harm. But if they see you're compassionate, which within itself would speak of a person who cares, you have a caring heart. There's that love that's coming forth. They, in turn, will open the door many times to you where they wouldn't to anyone else. Compassion carries with it a spirit of sensitivity. You're sensitive to the other person, and therefore you're gentle with them. And as a result, that provides you and that person with connection, to unite, to be connected. Then, as we consider the fifth truth, when we look at compassion and what it does and what it provides, compassion touches us. Yes. Think of a time when you were hurting and someone showed compassion to you. Compassion touches the heart, but it also, besides touching the heart of the other, your heart is touched to begin with. And that's why you've been moved. The Greek word for compassion means to literally cut to the core. And the core of a person's being is their heart. It cuts you to the heart. It hurts you too much to just turn a deaf ear or blind eye. So, what happens? Well, you're moved to do something about it. Compassion, you're cut to the core, and it moves you. You're going forth to do something. And while you may not know what to do it right away, you may be at a loss yourself. Like, you want to do something to help make it better, but what can I do? You may be saying to yourself. Well, until you find out what you can do to help make matters better, to help it, to bring forth, the outcome that you both desire. Well, until you find out what to do, it's going to continue to irritate you, to cut at you, to nag at you. So as we think of that, this idea of compassion, where it touches us, it touches others, you can see that within there, compassion, it touches deep within, and as it does, it provides that other person a safety net. They need to talk to someone about their harm, about their hurt. Maybe they're at fault, what they've done wrong. And the last thing they want to do is come before someone who's insensitive to their matter, to their situation, that's going to step on their heart. So they go to those they can trust. Compassion, when you show compassion to others, they see there's a safety net with you. That's what you bring to them. They can come to you, and they may still feel shame or regret, but they don't have to fear speaking with you about it. And I was just talking to a friend of mine, Pete Bussey. It was, I want to say, tomorrow, make a week ago. I believe it was last Friday. But we were speaking over the phone, and he mentioned something about he doesn't want to be insensitive, or I forget exactly what words he used, but he was trying to find the right words to say or how to put it. And I assured him that I don't see Pete as one who's insensitive. And in fact, I would not even speak to him about matters that I'm hurting over if I felt that he was. And the fact that he is compassionate, he is sensitive to my hurts, that affords me the peace and the confidence to go to him, to speak of the hurts and pains with him. Otherwise, I would not go to him. But I did. I chose to speak with Pete because I trust his character. I trust his heart. So that's the fifth thing that compassion does. Compassion touches. Then the sixth is compassion shows. It shows itself to be more than understanding or more than just a matter of empathizing. It shows itself to be that, as I said a minute ago, that caring spirit, that caring heart. It shows that. And when you are compassionate, it reveals the state of your heart. Whereas if you show no compassion, that also reveals the state of your heart, just to a negative extent. But that's what compassion does. And compassion has a way of breeding a calmness. When someone has compassion upon you, when I have compassion upon another, especially when they're very hurt, very angry, that compassion shown to them has a way of bringing a calmness. That heated tenseness sort of fades right there on the spot. So that is compassion, and what it does, it shouts itself out, making itself known by serving, by service. And it also humbles us. It humbles the person who's sharing, who is being the compassionate one. It humbles them even more than they already were. And the person on the receiving end, especially if they were really proud and arrogant, to have someone come forward and be compassionate toward them has a way of just melting them and melting them on the spot. Compassion humbles. Then we saw that compassion unites, compassion also observes. A compassionate heart has observant eyes. Yes. Eyes that recognize and pinpoint things that may not be totally obvious. And then that moves our heart outward to do something about the situation that person's in, to help make it better. Then compassion unites us to one another. When we're compassionate to others, we help others. Our heart goes out to them. Our hearts are connected. They come together. And then we see that compassion touches us. The one who shows the compassion is moved outwardly to do something because that touched deep within them. It cut them to the core. And therefore it moved them outward. And the person on the receiving end of that compassion was touched. Yes. And you see there within, that being touched, that person sees that it's safe to come to you, safe to open up about their hurts and pains, about their struggles, their trials, their temptations. Then lastly, compassion shows. It shows itself. When you're compassionate, truly compassionate, it involves you giving of yourself to the other. Yes. Compassion involves you're giving yourself to that other person. You're uniting with them. And it shows the state of your heart. And it shows to that person that you do care. So that's how compassion shouts. It shouts itself with those 6 undeniable truths. And we're going to look at more of what compassion means and how it impacts and what it does for those who learn to exercise this compassion regularly. That it's not hit and miss, but it's a part of us. What rises up from that? Friends, we're going to look at that when we come back. But first, we're going to step away to our second commercial break.
Wow, that was insightful. Stay tuned as we go on a quick break, and we'll be right back with more Insights to Incite right here on W4CY Radio and Talk 4 TV. Are you seeking a speaker or coach who speaks life into your people? If so, look no further. Brandon Lawson is one who will inspire and motivate his audience, as well as empathize and relate to all. Reach out to Brandon and let him be your speaker and life coach by sending an email to brandon@connectandimpact.net or calling him at 513-520-7597. Brandon looks forward to speaking with you, to you, and for you. Let's connect and impact today. Insights to Incite, a real show with real-life messages. This show, which can be found on radio, TV, and our podcast, gives us insight to incite us to action and to excellence. Watch and or listen to Insights to Incite live at noon Eastern Time every Thursday on W4CY Radio and Talk 4 TV. Check out our past episodes on iHeartRadio, YouTube, or anywhere you listen to your podcast. Join us each week, and together we will escape the mundane. We are back with more Insights to Incite, so get ready and tune in to listen and watch. Now, once again, let's join Brandon Lawson.
So, we just looked at 6 undeniable truths of compassion, of what it does and what it provides. And I also want to speak to characteristics of compassion itself. And some of these are sort of been spoken to in these other 6 truths, but at the same time have an added dimension. And when we think of this, compassion, what are characteristics of it, or how do we recognize it in people? Well, many times, people with compassion, you'll notice, are the first to help. Much of our world is played from the standpoint of a follower, especially when it comes to helping others. Many people don't want to be the first to step out. They tend to lurk in the background, but if others are doing it, yeah, I think I'll do that as well. But they won't be the one to initiate, to start that trend, or to get a campaign rolling that's going forth to benefit others. Others have to act first, and then they'll come. But a person of compassion often is the first to help. And what that does is that affords that individual greater impact. You can make an enormous impact when you are the first to help. Whereas when you're, second, third, 10th, 11th, 29th, 30th in line, while your efforts, your service and what you do may make a difference, and I would venture to say it will, at the same time, it won't be near as impactful. Because when you're the first to help, that's when you hear things said by that person who receives that compassion. They'll say things like, nobody's ever cared for me like you do. Nobody's ever loved me the way that you do. Or, God, why does he love me so? What have I done for him? Because being that you didn't just wait to the rest of the crowd, you were the first to step out and initiate. That is touches even deeper than not. So you can often identify a person of compassion when they are the first to help. They don't wait around to see if others are going to do it and then they'll jump in. Second, we'll see that a person of compassion is gentle. Yes, they're a gentle heart. And you think of someone who's shown you compassion. Were they mean and hateful? No, those are contrary to one another. A person of compassion is gentle, has a gentle heart that reaches out, a gentle spirit. So perhaps you are one who's going to look to start a campaign, campaign of compassion. And you want to recruit others because you can't do it alone. Well, look for that person who gets outside themselves to help others, who's the first to help, who has a gentle spirit about them. And then next, the third one, I believe that compassion is recognized. You can identify compassion by someone who is, I won't say overcome with emotion, just because they break in tears over that. That within itself doesn't mean they are compassionate, but I would say that it's a person who recognizes the struggle of others, and they see that. And when you see this person who as heart of compassion goes out and recognizing the other struggles or pains, you know You know it by the fact that the one who's hurting, their pains, their hurts, their struggles become a part of that person. So it's in effect like they become that your troubles become my troubles. Your hurts, your pains become my hurts and pains. That's where I said earlier, it's about two or more souls coming together and uniting. And that's how you identify it. And they're gentle by nature, and they're seeing the pains and hurts. They're so moved by it that it becomes a part of them, and they'll step out to help, even if no one else has. They'll be that first to help. They'll step forth. So, friends, what is compassion to you? What would your definition be? I personally see it as love that is gently extended and applied. And compassion is one of those things that it's of no good unless you give it away. In fact, you could even say that it's not compassion unless you give it away. You can feel bad for another, but until you move outward and extend yourself to help that person, there's no compassion. You just felt bad, but you did nothing. Compassion moves outwardly. In Paul's letter to the church at Colossus, he spoke of this idea of being humble. He called them to be humble. That's what they are to do, he tells them. In Colossians chapter 3, I'm going to start in verse 12. Therefore, God's chosen ones, holy and loved, put on heartfelt compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience, accepting one another and forgiving one another if anyone has a complaint against another. Just as the Lord has forgiven you, so you must also forgive. Above all, put on love, the perfect bond of unity. And let the peace of the Messiah, to which you are also called in one body, control your hearts and be thankful. Colossians 3:12 through 15. Did you notice the other characteristics identified in there? The other qualities of humility, kindness, gentleness, meekness, and that peace. Let that peace control your heart, or one translation says rule your heart. And that rule in the Greek is to govern over, to administer, to guide. And compassion, when you have a heart of compassion, you may not feel peace from the standpoint of your hurt, yet you will be moved to do something, and doing something about it will give you a greater peace than turning a blind eye to it, away from it. Compassion that moves us. And compassion involves true justice. As we think of this, true justice and not, some, justice You know, often they'll say it's served when punishment comes, yet they fail to see what brought on the crime that was done. Where true compassion does not look the other way. In Zechariah chapter 7, starting in verse 8, the word of the Lord came to Zechariah. The Lord of hosts says this: Make fair decisions, show faithful love and compassion to one another. Do not oppress the widow or the fatherless, the foreigner or the poor, and do not plot evil in your heart against one another. Friends, I'm bothered by this. And I'm bothered by the fact that I see compassion shown to many people who don't want to get better, yet the ones who do, who are hurting, you know, much of society doesn't even bother to help. You know, or if you're not in need of being, uh, if you're hurting, they just want to shove you over to a counselor, to a therapist, or someone of such. They think that's where you're to go. When really, what they're doing in many respects is they don't want to be bothered with your trouble, with your issues. And that's where a lack of compassion comes. Just go see, a therapist, a counselor, a psychiatrist. Maybe they can give you some meds to fix it all. And that's at the heart of many of the issues in our world today. Is they want to just take a pill, make it better. And we all know the chemicals that make up for that pill have side effects. Plus, the medical profession is booming because just take a drug for this, then one for that, one for that, one for that. Insurance industry is booming, and yet the problems don't cease. Yet our money, it's being stripped, which causes greater stress, another health issue. So just take another pill. If we could just learn to show a heart of compassion, to be compassionate, to where it's a regular, it's a sort of a theme of who I am, not simply what I do. Then, you know, then I will have an open ear to those who are hurting. I will extend my heart to them. I will join them. I will in turn make a difference. Will have a positive impact upon their lives. And that within itself, especially if we get more and more of this, where more and more people do this, that will change the culture of this don't bother me with your trouble, to let's help one another. And before we know it, we won't have near as much issues. Just that sense of belonging, that connectedness, that love that we have for each other, that chain that binds us together. That binding us together will be a good binding, not being chained down, restricted or restrained, but it's a connection of love that can make a difference, that can change our world and change the world. Yes. What is it that you would do? How is it that you will show compassion? And when was the last time that you showed compassion to another? Friends, let's take it upon ourselves to be compassionate. Not just to those who are homeless and struggling and doing drugs. Our money goes to that in taxes and bailing those people out. when many of them aren't even wanting to get better? How about those who are not sunk in the hole, but are sinking? They're going down because they're hurting, they're painful. How about reaching out that hand to extend it to them and lift them up? Be that difference maker in their lives. Have that profound impact upon that soul. Let's start a new wave. Let's breed a new culture, that we will breathe compassion, love, and mercy outward, that we will share it with others. Friends, will you do that? At any point you want to share your comments, if you don't want to appear on the show, you can go to our website at connectandimpact.net. CONNECTANDIMPACT.net. There it is on the screen. And share with us what you are doing, and perhaps it's you were on the receiving end of that compassion and the difference it made in your life. We'd love to hear it. We'd love your input, and if we're impacting you in some way that's touching you and moving you, perhaps it's changed you within and helped you to see things differently, please share with us. You can also reach out to us by phone, email, and give us, that whatever it is you want to share. Maybe it's granting us a story of how, a compassion has impacted your life, or maybe you're calling upon us because you want us to speak. You have an engagement you want to invite us to be your speaker. Give us a call, send us a message. You can reach us at 513-520-7597. This is Brandon Lawson. We thank you for joining us here for another episode of Insights to Incite. And we'll be back next week at Thursday, 12 noon Eastern, as we are every Thursday, for another episode of Insights to Incite and Lesson 15 of Matters That Matter. Thank you.
Wow, what an insightful show. Thanks for listening in and watching today. If you missed any part of today's show or any other episode, check it out on iHeartRadio, YouTube, or anywhere you listen to your podcast. Now take today's insight and utilize it. Incite yourself to action and to excellence in the week ahead, and join us again next Thursday and every Thursday at 12 noon Eastern Time for another insightful session with Brandon Lawson as he speaks to us and shares some more insights to incite right here on W4CY Radio and Talk 4 TV.